Australia's love affair with property investment could be coming to an end. The golden goose, the cash cow, the never fail investment that has made fortunes for decades may just be in its final act. The landscape is shifting rapidly and property may have peaked as an investment class. Is the party over? I'm Biko Konstantinos and that's what we're going to talk about today. I know somewhere the party's not ending. Right here with me, baby. So hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm here to keep you up to date on the financial stuff that affects your life. Now, why might the party be over for property investment in Australia?
Another Saturday of real estate auctions in spring in a marketplace that has very quickly moved from a seller's market to a buyer's market.
Auctioneer Tom Panos, who probably has some of the best intel for what's really going on in the market, has noticed a shift in the dynamics. Where previously sellers were able to control everything, now buyers are getting a bit more choice. However, there's absolutely no way I'd call this a buyer's market. I don't think Australia has seen a real buyer's market in my lifetime. I've witnessed some stock market crashes and that's what creates real buyer's market. It's when sellers are desperate to sell, but there's not enough buyers to soak up the selling demand, so the price keeps falling and falling. So that's a real buyer's market because the buyers have all the power and can pick up assets extremely cheaply. Now, I don't know if Australia will ever experience a real buyer's market because I just don't know if the government or central bank will ever allow that to happen. But wouldn't it be something?
All for one reason: demand and supply. The supply of listings right now is outstripping the increase in buyers.
And that's a bloody good thing, and I hope that this shift continues.
And it's quite easy to explain what's going on. Buyers just say, not too much, and then they say, there's another one down the road.
This is why Australia needs to drastically cut immigration levels. For far too long now, there's been absolutely insane demand for buying houses and for renting houses. That's not a healthy and functioning market, so we need to drastically remove overall demand so both house price and rental growth can start to ease and hopefully even fall. Alright, so the dynamics are finally starting to shift in the housing market and some of that ridiculous demand is starting to ease. But why might the party be over for property investors? First, there's increased calls for Australia to scrap over-generous taxation policies for property, especially negative gearing and capital gains tax discount. Recently, there's been article after article, video after video talking about whether negative gearing and the capital gains tax discount should be scrapped or at least overhauled. Because of the insanity of house prices and rent prices, along with the fact that millions of Australians are completely locked out of the housing market, more and more Australians are starting to realise that the housing tax system is completely skewed in favour of property owners and provides absolutely no benefit for renters. If you're looking for a compelling reason to get rid of negative gearing, have a load of this guy.
For all those have-nots and housing shortage advocates cheering that negative gearing should be scrapped, you bitches gotta understand that you will not get voted next election if you proceed to can negative gearing. Because there's no fucking way that me and my high net worth clients who earn from $800 to $1 million a year will pay half our money to the ATO without any facility to reduce our income tax through property. You will feel the wrath of the landlords, the investors, because we do not buy property to speculate. We buy property because all our money goes to the freaking tax man.
This is the reason why we must scrap negative gearing now. He basically said it for us. High income earners are using negative gearing to minimize their tax. And they know by parking their money in Australian property, they're basically guaranteed massive capital gains because Australian policies are all geared to create incredible demand for Australian property. So I think it's only a matter of time before these tax concessions are overhauled because you can't have a system that gives investors a huge competitive advantage over Australians who only want to be able to afford their own home. Next, we've got interest rates. Although it's widely expected that the current cash rate of 4.35% will start to reduce over the coming year or two, it's unlikely that interest rates will return to the ultra low levels that were seen prior to the pandemic. The cash rate may end up settling around 3%, which means mortgage repayments would be around 5%. Recent inflation has decimated Australians' lives, so the RBA will be very cautious not to stoke the inflation flames again. So without ultra low rates, it'll be difficult for people to continue to afford these extremely high prices. And that could put a bit of a ceiling onto house prices. Expenses for property investors are increasing and could continue increasing from here. A perfect example of how high expenses for investors can put a limit on house prices is Victoria. Victoria has the highest taxes and fees for property investors out of all of Australia. And because of this, many investors are selling up. This has had such a huge impact that house prices in Victoria rose very weakly compared to other states since the pandemic. In fact, house price growth in Victoria has been so lackluster that the median house price in Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth is now higher than Melbourne. This is a staggering turnaround from a few years ago, but goes to show you what can happen when property investing suddenly doesn't look as appealing. Check out some of the dynamics Victoria's high taxes are creating. First, when we look at investor lending as a proportion of total lending, we can see that Victoria is sitting on 31.5%, which apart from Tasmania is the lowest in the country. Then when we look at first home buyer finance commitments, we can see that Victoria has the highest percentage of first home buyers taking out loans. This is a good result in my opinion because it shows less investors are competing for properties, which allows more first home buyers to get in. And it's also the perfect illustration for why we should overhaul negative gearing and capital gains tax discount. By reducing incentives for investors, there'll be less overall demand for existing properties, which gives first home buyers better opportunity, which allows more renters the opportunity to buy their first home. Next, immigration should start to ease from their ridiculously high levels. The recent absurd number of immigrants coming into the country has been an absolute bonanza for property investors. It's created insane demand for both houses and rentals, which has sent house prices through the roof as well as rent prices through the roof. But both major parties have acknowledged that immigration levels need to come down because housing supply just can't keep up. From the numbers being published, they definitely aren't coming down quick enough in my opinion, but I do believe the numbers will start trending downwards no matter who wins the next election. So this just means that property investors may not benefit from all that extra demand that mass immigration has been giving them recently. And anything that reduces overall demand should lead to slower house price growth. Then we've got unemployment. Over the past few years, we've been in a sort of honeymoon period for overall employment. But now that expenses are so high for businesses, those unemployment rates should continue trending higher. And when you consider the accelerating sophistication of AI, job losses could really start accelerating over the coming years. Now, most property investors require a wage to be able to afford new investment properties. But if unemployment starts rising, it means there'll be less people competing for each property, which once again reduces demand and puts downward pressure on house prices. Property investors have had an absolute golden run in Australia over the past few decades. Not only have they seen house price growth of around 6 to 7% year on year, they've also benefited from the most generous tax concessions in the entire developed world. But as we've witnessed in Victoria, the good times for property investors can be totally reversed, which can finally start benefiting first home buyers. Is the party over for Australian property investors? I'm Biko Konstantinos.